In this session, we will start from the presentation of the another presentation of data. One method is using the pie charts. Therefore, a pie chart can be used to compare the relation between the whole and its components. Therefore, actually using pie chart is another data presentation technique that we are using. And if you just need to compare the relation between the whole and its component, then pie chart would be an appropriate method. A pie chart is a circular diagram. Therefore, if you see about the pie chart, then it will come up like in this way. It is as a circle. Then we can say that a pie chart is a circular diagram and the area of the sector of a circle is used in pie chart. It means that normally we are dividing this circular diagram into several parts. Therefore, if you consider a single area, then we can say this sector. This sector denotes a level of category. Therefore, these sectors, by the combination of these sectors, the pie chart is made up. Therefore, if you need to construct a pie chart, or in other terms is the sector diagram, first of all we have to draw a circle, and then the total angle of the circle would be 360 degrees, and then what we have to do is we have to divide the angle according to the components. Therefore, if you need to calculate the angle of the sector, then in the initial stage we are just having a circle, and now we need to divide this circle. If we are dividing this circle according to the levels of categories, then each category represents an angle in this pie chart. Now, then what we have to do is we have to calculate the angle of a sector. Then what we can do is we can have the component part. It is the number of observations in the considered level divided by the total number, and we have to multiply it with the 360 degrees. Therefore, once you mark the initiating line, then you can measure the angle, and for such angle you can draw the next line. Then this can be named as the sector 1 or the level of the category you are using. Then next sector can be start from here. Therefore, once you mark the angle, then you may get the angle in this way. Therefore, you can mark the next level of the category in this form. Next category would be in this way. Next category would be this way. Likewise, you can easily mark these categories, or you can easily mark these sectors, and each sector is associated with the angle. Then we can calculate that angle using the component part, or the number of observations falling into the relevant level of the category, and it has to be divided by the total number, and then it has to be multiplied with 360 degrees. It is because the total angle of a circle is equal to 360 degrees. This is an example that we can try for obtain a pie chart. In this example, it gives us the details of monthly budget of a family, and you are asked to represent these figures using a pie chart. You can identify item of expenditure. There are several levels, still it is in the categories, and for each level they have allocated the budget in dollars. Therefore, as an example, for food they are expending $600, clothing $100, then house rent $400. Likewise, they are having budget for each level of the category. Then if you ask to obtain a pie chart for this type of example, what you have to do at initial is you have to identify the angle associated with each level of the category or each category. You have to identify the angle associated. Then to identify the relevant angle for each sector, what you can do is, first of all, you can obtain the total for this project. Once you add these values, then you will get the total of this project would be equal to $1,500. Then what you can do is, for each sector or for each category, you can identify a suitable angle. If you are going to identify the angle for food, what you have to do is, the budget allocated for food is $600 and it has to be divided by the total number, or here we consider total budget. Then what we can do is 600 divided by 1500, and then you have to multiply it with 360 degrees. It is because we need to identify the angle associated for this sector. Then we will get the angle associated for food is now 144 degrees. Then if you take for the next category, clothing, budget is 100, total is still 1500. Then what we can do is 100 divided by 1500 and then multiplied with 360 degrees. Then we can get this angle as 24 degrees. Likewise, you can calculate the angles associated for each sector or each category. Then the next thing is, you can check whether you have correctly calculated this angle. To check that, what you have to do is, you have to take the sum of these values. Once you take the sum of these values, this sum should be definitely equal to 360 degrees. The sum should be definitely equal to 360 degrees. It is because the summation of these should be equal to 360. It is because you have already divided the 360 degrees into angles in this form. After identifying the associated angles for each category or each sector, then you can start for constructing pie chart. When you constructing pie chart, then first of all you can start from this point. Start from this point. I will start it from this point. This is where I am going to start this drawing pie chart. Then what I can do is, the angle associated for food is 144 degrees. Therefore, first of all, I have to mark a line. I am measuring this angle and this would be equal to 144 degrees. After obtaining the angle, then you have to draw this line. Therefore, now you are getting the first sector, and this sector is devoted for food. And then you can continue from this point. The next angle that you have measured was 24. The next angle you have measured is 24. Therefore, what you can do is, you can mark 24 degrees from here, and then you can mark the next sector. Then this sector is for clothing. Then what you can do is, you can continue from here. Third sector is for, the angle associated with third sector is 96 degrees. Therefore, what you can do is, you can mark 96 starting from here. Once you draw it, then here you have to measure 96 degrees from here. Then you will draw the next line here. Likewise, you can complete this pie chart, and to give the identity for each sector, you can name them, or you can use different shadings, or you can use different colors. Likewise, you can easily obtain the pie chart for an example like this. Then the next method is obtaining Pareto diagram. A chart that contains both bars and a line graph. In the Pareto diagram, we can see both bar, bar chart as well as a line graph, bar graph and a line graph, where the individual values are represented in the descending order by bars and the cumulative total is represented by the line. Therefore, in the Pareto diagram, it is actually combination of two types of graphing techniques. It is because you can see the bar chart as you can see a bar chart as well as the line graph inside a Pareto diagram. But these bar chart and the line graph identifies two different quantities. Then, if you see about the bars, now you can have in the Pareto diagram, the bars have ordered in the descending order and these bars represent the individual values. These bars represent the individual values and these bars are ordered in the descending order. Then the cumulative total. We all know how to identify cumulative totals. Now think about if you are having the values in this form. Now think about the values in this form. We'll take it as f here 1, 2, 5 and 7. If you ask to obtain the cumulative values, then I will take it as CF cumulative values, then 1 goes here, then 1 plus 2 value is 3, then 3 plus 5 value is 8, then 8 plus 7 value is 15. Then you can have this as the cumulative total. Then the line graph shows the cumulative totals in the Pareto diagram. If we consider the same example for the Pareto diagram, the same example for Pareto diagram, here you can have food 600, clothing 100, house rent 400, fuel and lighting 100, miscellaneous $300. If you ask to construct the Pareto diagram, what you can do is first you can rearrange these first you can rearrange these items or these categories in the descending order. Then if you rearrange them in the descending order, what will come first? The highest comes first. Then food comes the first. Food is the first and it has the value of $600. Then the next highest value is house rent. I will say it as H.R. House rent. For the house rent, the value or the budget allocated is $400. Then the next highest value that we can see is the miscellaneous. For miscellaneous, they have allocated 300 and then the least values are for clothing and fuel. For clothing, they have allocated $100 and for fuel and lighting, again another $100. Now you can see that the values have ordered in the descending order. This is the initial order you had, but now you have reordered them in the descending order. Then this is the budget you are having. Then what you can do is then you can obtain the cumulative totals. Then you can obtain the cumulative totals. Okay. When you obtain this cumulative total, the first value comes first 600, then 600 plus 400 value will become 1000 plus 300, 1300, then plus 100, 1400, and then the final value again 100 means total would be 1500. You can check whether this is also correct just by taking, once you add all these values, again this should be give the value as 1500. Therefore, this value should be appear at this place. The value that you are obtaining as the total should be definitely appear as the last value in the cumulative totals. Now you have arranged or reordered them in the descending order of the value, and for that details you have obtained the cumulative total. Now you have to use the bars to represent the budget, and then you have to use a line graph to show the cumulative total. Therefore, the Pareto diagram obtained for this data set is in this form. Now you can see that highest goes for food, then for house rent, then the miscellaneous, then clothing and fuel. Therefore, if you see about this chart, you can see that in the left hand side they have provided us the values, and then in the right hand side of this y-axis then they have include the percentage values. But when you are creating these percentage values are not that much necessary, but if it is given in as the minitab output, then it will give you the values as well as the percentage values. Therefore, now you can see the bars are now in the descending order. Highest for food, least for the fuel and lighting as well as for clothes. And these bars represent the value that we are having for budget or just the individual values. And then this is the line graph. The red colored graph is the line graph, and it shows us the cumulative totals. Therefore, if you see the cumulative total at this point, we have got it as 600. And when you are drawing this Pareto chart, then you have to uh, stick into these rules and regulations. The bars, the width of the bars should be equal. Height can be changed according to the magnitude. Width of the bars should be equal, and there should not be any spaces in between any two bars. Like in the bar chart, we had a space in between any two given consecutive bars, but in the Pareto diagram, there should not be anything in such form. There should not be any space between any two consecutive bars. And then by sticking to those rules, then you have to construct the bar diagram. And then you have to construct the line graph. When you are creating the line graph, the midpoint of or the midpoint of the width of the bar should be marked according to the value assigned for the cumulative total. Therefore, midpoint of the bar versus the cumulative total will be graphed on the line graph. Therefore, this is the midpoint of the food, and bar used to denote food, and the cumulative total is equal to 600. And the next important thing is, when you are constructing the Pareto diagram, always the first point is exactly on the first bar or the bar with the most height. Therefore, the total is 600. Once you come to food, then once you combine food and house rent, you can have the value as 1000. Here also we got value as 1000. Then if you combine these three, it means you have to add these three values, then you must get 1300. Therefore, the midpoint of this marked as this 1300. Likewise, you can mark 1400 and 1500. Actually, this is a combination of bar chart and the line graph. Where this type of diagram is said to be a Pareto diagram. And then next type of graph is the scatter plot. A plot of data on a scatter diagram is useful beginning when examining the relationship between two quantitative variables. Therefore, Normally, we are obtaining these scatter plots if we are interested in two variables. Therefore, if you are having two variables and if you have them as the quantitative variables, if you can have them as the quantitative variables, then we can use the scatter plot to examine or identify the relationship between those two variables. And the next important thing is you can expand this scatter plot into another higher stage as identifying a suitable equation. It is like once you obtain the scatter plot and you may have the data points, and if you can identify a reasonable line for these data points which covers all these data points, then we can identify an equation for such a line. Therefore, when we are going to discuss about the regression, these concepts will be very helpful for you. Therefore, if you are going to identify the relationship between any two given variables, you can use the scatter plot. Prior to identify or examine for any relationship or any regression, then first you have to identify a scatter plot. It is the graphical way of identifying a relationship. This is one example I have taken here, x variable, and for y variable I am having several values, and these values are acting like a pair. Here, values of x are 8, 9, 10, 3, and 11, and the values associated with these x values are 12, 5, 6, 7, and 9. Therefore, x and y can be considered as a pair. Therefore, by considering these values as a pair, now think about here you may have x value, here you may have y value. Then x is 8, it may be somewhat here, and I am marking y is equal to here. Y is equal to here. Then x value is x is 9, y is 5. X is 9, y is 5. Somewhat here. Then next value is x is 10, y is 3. Then for x equals 3, y is 7. Then for x equals 11, y is again 9. Then you can see that these points are somewhat scattered. Therefore, if you draw a line which is covering all these points or reasonable line, then you can obtain a line in this form. You can obtain a line in this form, a reasonable line for all these 5 points mentioned. Therefore, this is actually the preliminary stage of identifying a relationship between any given two variables. Therefore, this is the specialty of the scatter plot. You can easily examine the relationship between any two given variables using a scatter plot. If you obtain the scatter plot, in this graph you can see that these are three types of scatter plots we have obtained. If you see the first chart, you can see that you can easily draw a line which covers all these points. You can easily draw a line which fits for all these lines. Therefore, if you can have a line which fits for all these points, then we are saying such as a perfect relationship. Perfect relationship, and you can see that it is the y is increasing as x increases. In this graph, y is increasing as x increases. Therefore, we can identify such a relationship as a positive relationship. Therefore, if you fit a line which satisfies for all the points, and if it is in the upward direction as x increases, then we can say such a relationship as a perfect positive relationship. And if you see about this, the second graph, here also you can see the graph is in the upward direction, but it does not covers all the points. It may come covers only some points only, but all the other points are lies very closer to this line. Therefore, we can say that there is a positive relationship, but there is a high correlation or high relationship among these two variables. You can say since it is in the upward direction, you can say it is positive, and the dots or these points are lies closer or scattered around this line, then we can say that there is a high relationship. And here is also, if you consider about this example, the third graph, here still you can identify a graph or line in this way, but you can see that the points are now somewhat deviated from this line. Since the points are somewhat deviated from this line, then you can say that there is a low relationship. Still, you can say that there is a positive relationship since the line is in the upward direction. Therefore, this is the speciality of this scatter plot. You can easily identify the relationship and the type of the relationship once you obtain the scatter plot. And if you see about these three scatter plots, here also you can see that once you draw a line for this set of variable, this set of points, then here you can here you can see that the line that you are drawing fits for all these points, but it is in the downward direction. It is because as x increases, value of y is now decreasing. Therefore, we can say that there is a negative relationship between the variables. It is because as x increases, y is decreasing. But we can say that it is a perfect relationship. It is because the line that we are drawing fits for all the points. And the next thing is the second graph. Here also you can see that as x increases, value the line is decreasing or the value of y is decreasing. It is again in the downward direction, but the points are scattered near to this line. Therefore, here also we can identify there is a high relationship among the variables. But if you see about this graph, the third graph, in third graph, you cannot actually draw a reasonable line. Therefore, uh, here we can just say that it is somewhat just like a irregular shape. Therefore, since it is just like a circle, somewhat like a circle, not just like a just like the pattern of this line. Therefore, in such situation, we can say that there is no relationship among the variables. There may be some situations we may get the scatter plots in this form also. Therefore, uh, even though we are saying there is no relationship as soon as you see this graph, but once you go for the confirmatory analysis, then in such situations you may identify this because scatter plot is just a visual method that we are used to identify the relationship between variables. This is just a visual method. Since it is a visual method, there will be some errors or the error rate would be high for these visual methods. And then the next type of plot that we are discussing is the box plot. A box plot is a method for graphically uh, exciting groups of numerical dash is I will correct it, groups of numerical data through their quartiles. Therefore, in simple, we can say that box plot, when we are constructing the box plot, then we can have the quartiles. Actually, box plot is made up using the quartiles, and we are naming this box plot using another name as the box and whiskers plot. It is because the lines are extending vertically from boxes, or in other term is the whiskers, indicating the variability outside the upper and the lower quartiles. It is because we are obtaining this plot. Normally we are marking first quartile and then third quartile. Again you are marking, then normally second quartile is also marking. Then you are connecting them as the lines. Therefore, once you obtain this vertical and horizontal connected these, then you are getting this as a box. Therefore, we can say it as a box plot, and then you can mark the lower limit and the upper limit. Therefore, these are said to be the viscous line. Therefore, we can name this as the box and viscous plot also. And in the box plot, you can show the outliers. If there is any point outside these two regions or these two limits, beyond these two limits, then we can name them or we can show them as the outliers. Normally, we are using the asterisk notation to show the outliers. And using the space between these two parts, space between the first part, now think about the space between the red colored part and the space between the yellow colored part, we are having the dispersion and then the skewness of the data. We can state about the or we can comment on the skewness of the data, and we can show the outliers using box plot. This is just a brief introduction for the box plot. Therefore, if you go through this, you can see that using the box plot, you can easily identify the quartiles, this midpoint, then upper limit and the lower limit. And using the distance between the first part and the second part, you can comment on the skewness, and then using this first quartile and third quartile, you can comment about the dispersion also. Then using the box plot, the another important thing is you can easily identify the outliers also. Therefore, at the very beginning of these sessions, I told you when we are discussing about the graphing techniques or this presentation of data, we have discussed that there are some specialties in each graph. Therefore, if you see about the box plot, you can see that none of the previous plots give these information. None of them shows us the outliers. None of them shows the, or we were not able to comment that much on this skewness and the dispersion of the data. Those things were not shown very easily. Therefore, the box plot have that specialty. Therefore, this is all that we are discussing for the presentation of data. But there are so many other methods that we can identify as the presentation of data. And thank you all for joining me this session.